Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's been a busy week, so I decided to kind of show you my process. And I think I've done this before on the channel that I utilize on the iPad Pro in Procreate. So this is obviously not something that I drew in Procreate. This is something that I drew traditionally. So basically I took a picture of it and I imported it into Procreate. And I went ahead and I pushed back the transparency, probably around 35%, 35%, and I went ahead and inked it. So these are pretty simple inks. I started out using one of my brushes that I imported over from Photoshop, and it was pretty good as I went through, and then I ended up landing on the 6B pencil near the end because I just liked the way that it was translating and I could control the line weight a little bit better. It was really nice. So I went ahead and did that. And let me see here. So there we go. So what I do basically now is in the process, I go back and I push the line weight a little bit more. I was doing some tests for the recording before I started this. Let's go ahead and make that a little bit smaller. And the sound of the plastic nib on the surface of my iPad was just so irritating. I don't know why. It's not typically irritating to me, so I don't know why it was. So I put one of those little rubber nibs. Have you seen those? They're made of silicone. And it quieted the stroke down quite a bit. But the problem is, and they don't tell you this whenever you buy these things, I think I paid $4 for like 10 of them. They work pretty good. They cover the very end of the Apple Pencil with a silicone kind of a sleeve, and they work pretty good. The problem is I think it dumbs down the sensitivity. You wouldn't think that it does, but maybe it's like a placebo effect or something. You know, I think that it does, therefore it does. So I'm going to take it off, and you're going to be able to hear it. So now, interesting. Now it feels completely different. So, hopefully you don't mind a little bit of a sound of the drawing here. And I would probably spend, I don't know, maybe 30 minutes doing this, going in and zooming in and out, going in, zooming in and out, and trying to give a little bit of variation of line weight. Now, I know a lot of people are really great at inking, and I'm going to be very frank with you. I'm not. Inking is something that is, in my opinion, an art in and of itself. It takes somebody with a huge amount of patience and also the ability to see things in a way that I have not trained myself to see, right? It makes complete sense to them to put in, you know, solids and textures and places using lines and fills and stuff like that. And I think that those people that have the ability to do that really well are worth their weight in gold. I mean, honestly, if you can take a pencil drawing that looks like gobbledygook and translate it over to a beautiful ink drawing, more power to you. Me, I'm gonna stick with my rough, sketchy lines. That's my jam. I love to draw. And I know that inking is a form of drawing, but I don't get excited. Okay, so I would basically do that for a while, and then once I've landed on somewhere I like, I would take away that back drawing, and I'm left with sort of, you know, the basics for, you know, an illustration. Yeah, I need to go ahead and fix this because this is way too thin right here. You know, and I need to go ahead and do this. Please be patient with me. Hold, please. Going to play a little music in your brain. Okay, so now we've landed on something that we're very familiar with. An ink drawing. Not overdone, not overproduced, and something that, you know, I can work with. I didn't go in and do too many arbitrary details because I'm not, you know, obviously I'm doing this for myself, so I can take as long as I want. You know, just doing little bits here and there, and everywhere. That's how they say it everywhere here up in the mountains. Everywhere. First time I heard it, I said, what? What? But it's part of the local charm. I was at the post office and my package had come in and the lady in there, she goes, I'll tell you what, I had to look everywhere for your package. And I said, okay. Can you look one more time? Yeah. And she did, and she found it. So she didn't look everywhere. Anyway, so this is where I landed. And then I go ahead and put in a simple background. Boom. Man, that slapped you in the face. Boom. So this is obviously a simple background, horizon line. Let's go ahead and go on this layer. Obviously, the horizon line is very simple right here. You know, right here. And you have the differentiation between ground plane right here and sky plane up here. Sky plane. So now what I do is I go in and I just... Now there's a couple ways I can do this. So since I have a nice solid line, I can select... Now I don't use Procreate a lot, so it takes me a few minutes. Freeform. Okay, we're in the selection tool. No. Yeah, we're in the selection tool. That's what I want. Hue, saturation, brightness. Automatic. Okay, so here we go. So we're in the selection tool. You see all the programs that I have in my brain. I just have to click over once I get into the program that I'm utilizing at the time. So obviously I can do freehand. I can utilize the predetermined shapes that they have, ellipse. But we're going to do automatic. So I just click here and it shows me what I have selected. The problem is it's, you see how I'm sliding it back and forth? I've actually got my finger on the screen, and the threshold has to do with the amount of masking that it has. So I've got, it's pretty good, but I've got some holes down in their feet, and I've got some holes up there in the hair. So instead of going and fixing those, I'm just going to do what I normally do. Let's go to painting, because I want to, where's painting at? Here, just to give you some understanding of how many brushes I have. Yeah, that's a lot of brushes. And even the imported, if I go over to the imported, yeah, I got a lot of brushes. So I'm kind of abstained from purchasing any more brushes. So I think just the plain old sketch paintbrush is good. We're going to go ahead and choose something that complements the piece. And what color, what's the base color? You know, every dragon's going to be different. I'll go in and I'll put, gosh, you can make it a neutral. You can make it, you know, red, green, depending on what type of dragon he is. He's kind of like a cross between a bird and a dragon. So I'm going to he's going to have a lot of colors on him. I want a lot of colors in the fur, not the fur, feathers, and the feathers. So I'm probably, since the background is green, I'm going to probably go in this red hue range. So let's go ahead. I'm thinking macaw, a parrot of some sorts. So now, whoops, I'm on the wrong layer. Yep. So now, actually that's pressure. Oh, why is that brush so terrible? Sketch paintbrush, round, flat. Ooh, there we go. Nice and saturated. So let's make that a little bit smaller. And I'll go in and I'll just start blocking in my color. Now, like I had said before, there are a couple ways, obviously, that I could have done this. But to me, this is part of the therapy that is art. Part of drawing, part of, you know, the overall therapy that I experience in art has to do with some of the repetitive actions. You know, with inking, it is a repetitive action, but it also involves a lot of patience, whereas this is just, you can turn your brain off and you're like, okay, color inside the lines. So that's pretty nice. You know, that's part of that art therapy. And, you know, I like doing it this way. Now, if I was on, let's say, Photoshop or some of those other programs, I might go in and block in the color a little bit different. You know, maybe using the lasso tool, which I believe you can do as well here, because it does have a freeform way of doing it. But I just figured, you know, what the heck, let's do it this way. And that's pretty standard in a lot of the programs, because you're like, well, there's so many different ways to do so many different things. You know, I mean, even if I were to say, you know, I'll use this as a reference layer, and then I'll start dragging and dropping and filling stuff in. And you can do that. That's what's great about Procreate. You can do the same thing many different ways and get the same result depending on your level of expertise. I consider myself to be pretty proficient at Procreate. I am not on the level of some other Procreate artists. So if you're looking at my videos and you're thinking, why does he forget how to do some of the most simple actions in Procreate? Well, one of the reasons why, because I don't use it every day. And that's just the same, you know, just like ZBrush. I don't use ZBrush every day. And once I get into it, there's those synapses in my brain that need to click back. And all the quick keys and all the muscle memory and everything clicks back. And then probably after 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on if I've had my coffee, you know, suddenly I've got it again. Photoshop. Wait a minute, I think I hear the cows. The cows outside. Hold on. What's interesting is it's probably, what time is it? It's about 10 to 7. And if one of the mamas hears or can't find their baby, holy moly, lots of mooing. Moo! It's pretty fun. I live literally in between two mountains on a farm. It is a working farm, and the farmhouse that I live in was built early 50s, like 52, 53, and it's been added on to as the years have progressed, and it's just a great place to live. It's extremely quiet, with the exception of the occasional cow song. So that's pretty cool. So as you see, just blocking in. And here, watch, I can do this. See, this is another way you can do it. Here. Again, you don't have to worry about the lines. I'm not worrying about the lines. Here. Not doing any of that. So, indeed. Okay. And I'll show you what I'll do here in a second. Because again, this is another way of doing it. You can do how you do it. This is how I do it. I do it probably a different way every single time I do it. Of course, depending on how tight I want the illustration to be. You know. Okay, so we've blocked in the red. Look around, look around, look around. Okay, I'm pretty happy about that. Okay. Yep, there's the cow song. Okay, so now I'll go to the eraser. And currently, I believe it's, let's see what eraser it's on. Because excuse me, what's cool in Procreate is the eraser can have the same brush or the different brush or whatever brush that you really desire to have as your eraser. You can have a texture brush, you can have watercolor brush, you can really get some really great effects with the eraser. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to keep doing this, obviously. You know, basically I'm going back and I'm erasing where I went outside the lines. Okay, just continuing on, just blocking in my color. You know, this is, again, one of those tasks which, you know, can take a while. It can go really fast depending on how you've set your file up, and that's basically all I'm doing right now. So I do have this particular layer as a reference layer, so anything that I do on any of their layers will reference this layer. So, like if I were to go ahead and drag and drop some of the yeah, see, going in and dragging and dropping. See, unfortunately, I didn't complete the drawing in some areas, so the drag and drop method is not going to be viable for every, you know, every portion of the illustration. It'll work in some areas, but since I've got a lot of detail in there, I just decided to go ahead and do this manually. So I think what I'll do, here we go, just put that in there. That's really cool because, you know, Procreate's got, and it's had this for a while, that drag and drop feature, and you can adjust the threshold to be able to go up to the line, give yourself a little bit of leeway. Yeah, see, I can't do that. So if I'll go back to my brush, just my flat brush, cancel. And I can just go ahead and fill some of these areas in traditionally. You know, I say traditionally, just manually, doing it manually. And as you see, it is progressing nicely. And once I get this silhouette in, this red silhouette, and the local color, I'll go back in and I'll start filling in a lot of the areas like here and here and here. So I'll go ahead and probably, yeah, I hesitate to go ahead and just put you guys on time-lapse and, you know, go from there, because I had some people that, you know, were interested in the process in Procreate. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll erase some of these areas right here so I'm not leaving you prematurely. Okay. You know, there's so many other really great artists and illustrators that use Procreate to its maximum. And I feel like I still treat Procreate similar to I do Photoshop. You know, working in layers, using some of the same layer compositing ideas that I use in Photoshop, just because I'm familiar with Photoshop. Clip Studio Paint is another great program. If you don't have that program, I highly recommend you get it. It is available on the iPad, it is available on a myriad of devices, probably even Samsung devices. And what's great about that is it's the full version of Clip Studio Paint. It's not a dumbed down version. You know, Photoshop on the iPad is evolving, but it is not the full version. And a lot of people complain about that. But, you know, you have to look at it from Adobe's standpoint. You know, they're trying to have a business model and trying to do the best they can and blah, 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 all that stuff. And, you know, whenever you transfer a huge program that has such a robust legacy over to the iPad, it just doesn't work. And, you know, all the quick keys that we have, you know, come to grow accustomed to inside Photoshop. You go to do them on the iPad and it's like, well, I don't have my quick keys. But Procreate is just one of those programs that, you know, it was developed on the iPad and it's really good. And Clip Studio Paint actually is really good on the iPad too. So, excuse me. Try Clip Studio Paint. It is wonderful. So now what I'll do is I'll go and I'll just start putting in some of the color in this plumage. So red to orange. Red to orange. Yeah, kind of a yellowish hue. And I'll still utilize this flat brush. Done. Let's see, it's not going to mix unless I make it mix. So So red body, I guess we'll do yellow. And I'll just start putting in some of this orange color as I progress through the illustration. You know, you want these videos to be exciting. You want them to be, you know, wonderful and editing and just incredible. And then, you know, at the end, you don't feel like you've learned anything. And that's, you know, that happened a lot when I was looking for specific videos when I was in my learning process. And even today, I want videos that have context, that teach me something that I understand, learn, not just a time lapse and have a nice day, you know, the thought process. And that's kind of where my channel evolved from. I'm using some of the pressure sensitivity qualities of this particular brush to blend into the red. And as I come up, going closer to his face, like some of these areas, maybe I'll just touch them with a hint of orange hue, orange color, as I zoom in and out. Okay, so so you're not bored, I'm going to go ahead and utilize the time-lapse feature and let you guys watch me put in some of that local color / color flats. So, enjoy. Okay, so this is the time whenever I'm putting in the shadows, and I'll be doing the highlights here in just a moment. So I've created, you can see my layer hierarchy is pretty simple. I don't get too busy, too complicated when it comes to the layer hierarchy in this particular program, Procreate. I know that it supports, depending on the iPad you have, a lot of layers, and I think also depending on the canvas size. So if I were to go to crop and resize, if I were to go to settings, whoops, let me see here. Okay, canvas information. So if we go to canvas information, you can see that it's pretty big, 4032 by 3024. So it's 4K. So it's huge. 13 by 10 at 4K, 300 DPI. So I don't know what my, it might have just shown it. I don't know what my layer limitation is, but you might run into layer limitations if you give it a lot to do. Layers and whatnot can really bog down, depending on the brushes. I found that out early on in my iPad career. Not that it's a career. So as you see, I can, there is a lot of detail in here, but I haven't really gone in and put in a lot of detail and quote unquote a lot of effort. It's been pretty simple shading. It's been pretty simple, putting in the textures and whatnot, just using brushes to go in and put some of the layer compositing and textures and stuff like that in. So what am I doing right now? I'm just going in and just finalizing some of those shadows on this creature to kind of accentuate the form. So what brush am I using? So this comes from, I believe, the stock. These brushes right here come from the standard brushes that you get with Procreate. And believe it or not, Procreate's got a great brush engine, and you know, the gouache is really good for, in my opinion, for just simple shading and whatnot. I don't use black. And, you know, I think for those of you who are artists or those of you who draw a lot, realize, you know, black kills color, so does white. White kills color. So I try not to use either black or white unless, you know, the local color is black or white. You know, even white has some subtle hue variables in there from atmospherics, you know, different reflected light. You know, even here, like I do have white right here, but what I'll end up doing is I'll go back in with my shadowing and I'll just start giving it a little bit more form. What color do I use for our shadow? So if we look, you see it's in the purple range. That's kind of my standard go-to. Sometimes I'll do blue, you know, sometimes over here, you know, sometimes in the purple, you know, in the pinkish range, depending on what I'm doing. But I don't use black. That's, or, you know, I might use Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray is a cool gray with a lot of purple in it. So, little mental note, every single time you decide you want to do shadowing, don't use black. And also, whenever you use highlights, don't use white. Okay, so as we progress through here, I'm going to switch over to highlights really quick. I'm not, you know, like I said before, I'm not getting in there and I'm not mucking things up too harshly. And I could spend, guys, you know as well as I do, these drawings, you could spend hours upon hours upon hours on these. But I'm not doing that. I just wanted to show you kind of my process of translating a traditional drawing over to Procreate and creating something fun, which is what this is. Something fun. You know, I could go in here and all the details and all the, you know, textures and whatnot. But I want to get this drawing done so I can move on to the next drawing. You know? And this is just a style choice. You see that I've left my dark lines in here, and a lot of people don't like that. And I totally get it. And, you know, they don't like how harsh the lines are, and that's of course a style decision. I do have the ability to paint and use, you know, the wonderful brushes that are in Procreate to paint, but I like my lines. That's kind of my shtick. Going in and, you know, putting some of these shadows in here is really fun. I'm not getting too deep. Okay, so now as far as the highlights go, let's go over here. We're going to create another layer, and then we're going to clipping mask again, and we're going to choose a highlight. So right now the light's coming from the upper quadrant, let's say 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, somewhere directly above us. Let's go ahead and choose a little bit warmer, probably right around there. Okay, we're going to go orangish, a little bit orangish, a little bit warmer, probably right about there. Right about there, which is what they say around here, there. They don't say there, they say there. We're going to keep on gouache. And then we're going to change the layer transparency to, instead of normal, we're going to go to overlay. Okay, incidentally, the shadow layer that I had it on should have been on multiply. It was actually on normal. So we're going to go to multiply. Yep, multiply. Okay. And since it is on the clipping mask setting right here, you can go ahead and if you're like, la da da, oh my gosh, wait a minute, it's not going out of the outlines. Oh my gosh, it's magic. No, it's just the way that you have it set up. Clipping masks basically use this layer as a reference layer. And you can see these little arrows right here on the left-hand side of these layers. And it's pointing downward to this layer 4. So layer 9 is basically using layer 4 as a reference layer and as a clipping mask. So anytime I paint over it, I have the wonderful technological advantage of not going out of the lines. So as you see, as I go in, go ahead and make this. And what that is doing is it's light, not lightening, it's giving a nice warm hue overlay to my creature. Let's make it a big brush, big brush. He's got a nice highlight on his rump. See how that really jumps? And then of course, we'll do reflected light in a second. I'm going to show you something else. Okay, good, good, good. It's like I'm taking a warm light and I'm shining it on him. Whoops. I messed up. Okay. A little bit here and there. Good. Good. Nice highlight on his back there. Okay, and like you see, I keep zooming out because I want to make sure that I don't sit there and dwell on something that's really close. And then whenever I zoom out, it kind of jumps out and then like, oh my gosh, I messed that up. Okay. Alrighty. And then finally, another layer. I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit lighter right about here. And I'm going to, where's it at? Linear dodge, add. Okay, so the add is basically like a linear, let me see if that's linear dodge. Let's go ahead and do a clipping mask. Whoop. And okay, so there's color dodge and then there's something called linear dodge. Not really sure what it means other than it really accentuates the lights. So dodge is to, I believe, to under there's something called dodge and burn. Dodge is you're basically limiting the amount of light that goes on a photograph, and then burn is you're overexposing it. So this basically brings back and accentuates the light part of the layer underneath. So as you see, I get some really nice highlights in there. And what I'll do basically with this brush, again, we're still on the gouache brush. I'm not changing my brushes per se. And I'm kind of like feeling my way through the drawing. You know, I'm not lifting my stylus. Sorry, it's the stylus, Apple Pencil, with the finger and the pinky up. How dare you call this a stylus? This is a pencil. It's an Apple Pencil. I digress. Sometimes I get a little goofy when it comes to Apple products. I've used Apple products since, I believe, 1997. And sometimes with their naming of things, I'm just like, all right, dude, whatever. I like that Squidward mentality. Whatever. Okay. Good. Anyway, so I'm kind of feeling my way out here and sculpting things. A little highlight on here. This gouache almost has a watercolory feel to it. It's really nice. You see as the feathers go down, I can basically go in and put some really cool highlights in there. Linear dodge, add, dodge, burn. reflected light. Okay, that little noise right there means my voice lesson person is almost here. Yes, I teach voice, singing. So my voice guy is almost here. So I'm going to go ahead and put you guys on a final time lapse, and we'll do a wrap up at the end just to kind of explain my process. I'll be doing, actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish this up. And then I'm going to bring in the reflected light. So like your blues and your greens and all of those, because I want to show you guys, you know, the importance of having different temperatures of light. Oops. So I'm going to finish up these highlights, these warm highlights, and then I'll come back and I'll show you guys the reflected highlights after my voice lesson. So yeah, the reflected light. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Okay, so this is the final leg of the illustration. I'm going to go ahead and show you, I'm putting in the reflective light highlights. So I created a layer and I did a clipping mask because, again, remember that the clipping mask references the layer that it's on top of, and since all of these layers above layer 4 are referencing it, if I accidentally go outside the lines, I won't have any issues. And I've gone ahead and done a color dodge. So again, dodge being lighten. Burn is darken, dodge is lighten. So I'm doing a colored lighten. So I can come here, and you can see as I progress through, I want to go ahead and do on the bottom. See on the bottom areas. See what that's going to do is it's going to do a little bit of a highlight on the bottom areas and kind of cool that off a little bit. Let's do maximum opacity. Whoops. So we do a nice right here. And basically it's going to hit all those areas that are lighter. It's going to show up much better on lightened areas. Right? Because if you watch, if I go and I, whoops, two fingers. For those of you who are new to Procreate, the undo is 2 fingers and the redo is 3 fingers. So if I'm like, oh snap, I don't like that, 2 fingers. Oh, I did like that, 3 fingers. See how that goes? Okay. See, a lot of time, this is just a little bit of trial and error. That's all it really is. Finding what works for you in the balance of the illustration. And so now, let me see here. You know, working in layers is great, but sometimes it can be a little bit much if you don't have good layer management, which indeed has to do with how you position things, where you position things, how many things you position on top of each other. You know, it's literally a lot. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cool off some of these warm shadows on these nails. Again, using the color dodge. Color dodge is wonderful. It's a lot of fun. Good. Okay, good. Okay, so now I'm going to create a little bit of a kind of a body, I don't want to call it a body glow. I'm going to make the body glow. So I'm going to use white, but I'm going to use a little bit of this greenish blue color, kind of like a rim lighting. I like the gouache, but I also like these two because if you watch, you see how they have kind of like a wishy-washy feel to them. So I'm not outlining him, but I'm just giving him a little bit to stand off in that background. Just a little bit, just enough to where you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. And again, this might not work. You know, this is one of those things where I play around with things, and, you know, that's part of the experimentation that really defines me as an artist. I'm an experimenter. Scientist. I'm a scientist. I'm an art scientist. You know? There's a lot of really cool things in Procreate. A lot of cool brushes. A lot of cool effects. They're always improving this program. So, for those of you on my channel who don't have an iPad Pro, that's completely fine. Procreate is available on all devices. Wait a minute. Dang it. Procreate's only available on the iPad. You're about to say, wait a minute, homeboy. You are completely off your rocker. Yeah, unfortunately, Procreate's one of those programs that was created solely for the iPad and the iPad experience, utilizing the Apple Pencil. I think it's been out for quite a while, and I did try to use it at one point in time with the Adonet Jot. By the way, the Adonet Jot was the stylus before the iPad Pencil. And let's just say that it was completely awesomely bad. Because it had a little rubber tip, and then it did away with the rubber tip, and it had this plastic nib, and it was bad. It was really bad. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a Gaussian blur. We're going to blur the layer, and you can see as I've got my stylus, my Apple Pencil on the screen, and I'm sliding it back and forth, and you can see I can do the amount. So I think right around here is where I want to be. And I clip the pencil, back to the paintbrush. And now I'm going to go and I'm going to have some little flicks and flecks to give it a little bit of life. So we're going to go down to the speckle. And we're going to give it a little bit of here and there, just to give it some atmospherics. And again, we're going to go to the Gaussian blur layer, and I'm going to slide it back and forth. So maybe those are in the background. I'm going to put those all the way in the back. Hold on. And we're going to slide those down here. Okay. And then we're going to create another layer. And we're going to lighten these up just a little bit. And we're going to create some more. And a little bit. It's all about perspective. It's all about where you're trying to accomplish the eye focus, right? And again, just having fun, right? Okay. You know, okay, the smudge. So this is really cool. So we're going to go ahead and hit this. This is the smudge, sort of smudgy tool. Smudgy, that's a technical term that we learned in college, smudgy. So we're going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to smudge some of the areas near the edge and whatnot. Again, you want to give perspective. And perspective has to do with relationship. And some of these specks are closer than others. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing some of them back, which thus brings other ones forward. Yeah. Okay. So look at him. He looks pretty good. So I think that's where I'm, hold on, I was going to stop for a second. Didn't want to do that. I still have to do, okay, that's alpha locked. Okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a new layer, and we're going to clipping mask that. And I want to do some simple highlights, green, but I'm going to warm it up quite a bit to make that shadow pop. Instead of going in and making the shadow darker, I'm going to make the highlight more highlight, which will conversely, it'll make that shadow pop somewhat a little bit better. So let's go down. Where's my flora? Okay, jungle, growth. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, and we're going to put it on overlay. Overlay. I believe that's the one I want. Yeah. See, I'm not making the shadow darker, but whenever I do this, it's going to make it darker because, again, I'm creating contrast. And a little bit in the background. Okay. So that's where I wanted to land for you guys today. Hopefully you enjoyed this short tutorial on how, it's not really a tutorial, I guess it was, on how I translated traditional art over to the iPad Pro in Procreate, and using simple, simple layer compositing, created a fun illustration that hopefully you guys got some type of learning from. So anyway, like and subscribe and share and help me grow the channel. And hopefully at some point in time, one day, I can put out a video every day, if not every other day, without having to stop my business. All right, you guys, thanks, and we'll see you next time. I don't even know what to call him. Somebody name him. He's fun. It's kind of the Quetzalcoatl. If anybody knows what a Quetzalcoatl is, that's a Mayan reference to like a dinosaur bird, kind of like a god. So, kind of like a Tyrannosaurus Quetzalcoatl. Thank you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.